Welcome into the GigEm247 Sports Podcast. I am Andrew Hattersley, joined by Brian Peroni, who's back. We're going to talk a little recruiting today. Some big news for Texas A&M. A couple visit weekends down, and the feedback's been really positive from these weekends. And now we're starting to see some results and some commitments come in. The latest, Miles O'Neill, Princeton Hun quarterback, the second quarterback in the class for Texas A&M. Brian, welcome to the show, and thanks for joining us. What are kind of your thoughts on this commitment?
I mean, I think it's a big one. You know, Jimbo Fisher and the rest of the staff, Bobby Petrino, they wanted that second QB. They have Anthony Maddox on board, but wanted a second QB. And Miles O'Neill is a good one to have. I mean, he's a kid that thought he was going to be a 2025 recruit, so he had taken things a little slower than the rest of his peers. Realized that he was going to graduate this year instead, and saw a whole bunch of offers come in this spring. He took a bunch of visits. He has a bunch of officials set up, but he decided to cancel that after his A&M visit. It was interesting. He actually visited A&M like 2 days or so after he picked up the offer on an unofficial visit. He was supposed to be at Penn State that day. You know, Penn State's a much more local school to New Jersey than A&M is. But instead of going to Penn State that day, he flew down to A&M and then flew back over the weekend and just decided, hey, that's my home.
Yeah, things moved really quickly for him. I think his offer came on May 13th or 12th. And like you said, a couple days later, he was on campus, had the official visit scheduled, and basically within a month, this was all wrapped up. And it's a big deal for A&M. Obviously, looking at his stats, as you mentioned, completed 73% of his passes, had accounted for 28 touchdowns. Big arm. That's one of the first things that really stands out on film. Is, I think it was the third or fourth throw on his film that he's kind of getting taken out at the knees and flips it 50 yards for a touchdown. Yeah. You kind of just see that arm strength come out right away. And I think it's a big deal for A&M because we talked about this last cycle. A&M spent so much of the summer chasing Jaden Rashada and Dante Moore and all these guys, and before getting Marcel Reed in the boat right before signing day. This year, you've got both your quarterbacks now by the middle of June set, and you can worry about the other parts of the class. To me, I think that's a really big positive. And instead of having to worry about who you're going to take at quarterback, you can kind of move on to other areas of the class.
No, for sure. And I tell you what, both of these guys are good enough to be, the only QB in the class. Mm-hmm. So, let's say something happens, one of them decides to look around late, now you have an insurance policy on the other guy. So, yeah, I think it's huge. And like you said, being able to build around the class. Last year, that was, a lot different than any Jimbo Fisher class we've covered. I mean, the other one was, Haynes King, but that was just the summer before his senior year, whereas Marcel Reed, I mean, not having a QB. They did have Eli Holstein early, but, seeing him go to Bama and not having a QB for that long. And I think I don't think anybody's committing except for maybe receivers based on quarterbacks, but it doesn't hurt if you've got a guy that people are excited about. And, O'Neill may not be the highest ranked kid right now, but I think I think there's a chance you see him go up in the composite when everybody, sees him in person this summer and this fall. And, I know that he's a guy that has a lot of the buzz for a reason. Like Michigan State's got to be pretty bummed that he's not going to show up this weekend. Boston College, the weekend after that. Penn State.
Virginia was in there.
Again, Virginia already took the visit too. So, yeah, I mean, there were a lot of schools, a lot of Power 5 schools after this kid.
And I know everybody, when they kind of look at, his film, one of the first things people kind of, are curious about, is he a pocket guy? Is he a guy that's mobile? From what I saw, he's mobile enough to at least move around the pocket and get out of pressure. He's not going to be your true dual threat type of guy, but I saw some mobility, at least in the way he was able to evade pressure, take off on some runs here and there on QB draws. And what'd you make of his mobility and the way he can move around in the pocket?
Yeah, like you said, I mean, he's not a guy that's going to run for 1,000 yards on the season. I mean, he's a big kid too at 6'5", 220. But, when you're that big, you're even harder to bring down. I remember A&M fans watching Vince Young back in the day. And I know Vince Young was an athletic quarterback, a running quarterback. But, I mean, it was just, you would see the A&M defenders especially just bounce off the guy. So, and I think you see that in the NFL with some of these big dudes. So, that's I think a plus. But, yeah, he's not, he's not a guy that you're going to have a ton of design runs for, but he's also not just going to be a board in the pocket that can't do anything.
No doubt. And we got some questions on it on the board. And I think it's important to note one of the questions was, well, what impact does this have on Anthony Maddox? And I think it's important to note that I don't think it really has a whole lot of impact. He's been really solid to A&M since he made a quick commitment too, and really likes the relationship that he's
Mhm.
built with Bobby Petrino, and has been aware for a while. I would say that A&M was probably going to take two quarterbacks in this class. They were after Aaron Nolan for a while, and but I think he looks at this as an opportunity with him, Marcel Reed, and Miles O'Neill now in the fold. This could be a pretty good competition a couple years
Mhm.
down the road between these three guys. I don't think there's any perception that you're bringing in a five-star. There's not going to
Yeah,
be a chance to compete for the job when you're both kind of in the same area. Like we
yeah.
said, both could easily end up as four-stars by the end of this class. Anthony Maddox has kind of been right on the edge. Miles O'Neill, as we talked about, is a guy that could rise too. I
Mhm.
think all three of these guys, including Marcel Reed, feel like when the job comes back open, all three have a chance that they can win the job. And so I don't think this is going to have much of an effect on him. And he'll take his official visit this upcoming weekend to Texas A&M, the weekend of June 16th, and has been really locked in with A&M.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think this is, obviously you want the best players on the team, but I would think,
Mhm.
Maddox has got to be at least personally a little more relieved that it wasn't Aaron Nolan, a guy that's ranked, we're not saying O'Neill's not as good or not a stud, but it's not a guy
Yeah.
that's ranked as high. And so you won't have the fans clamoring for him. I remember, you know, uh, this is a bit older than you, but when Reggie McNeil was a freshman and he came in as a 5-star, and fans are just chanting Reggie, Reggie in the stands,
It's
until
tough.
basically, yeah, he needed to come in and play. Um, and so yeah, you don't have that. There's not the one guy that is going to get every benefit of the doubt. Like I mean, at Texas last year, what was it? The news was supposedly that Hudson Card had won the
Yep.
job. Boosters come in and say, "Oh no, that's going to be the 5-star. It's got to be Quinn Ewers." So,
Yep.
yeah, it's like it's not that. So he's going to get every kind of chance without somebody having sort of the leg up just based on the rankings.
No doubt. Intriguing to see how this kind of plays out, but I think it's no doubt good news. And A&M is already has a receiver in the boat too. I think things are trending pretty nicely for A&M. They've got a lot of options up front. Is that one of the big standouts for you? They've brought in a lot of offensive linemen, which is kind of one of the big things I've kind of taken away, especially at the offensive tackle position. I like what they're doing. They're giving themselves Blake Ivy and Weston Davis, options like that. Ori Williams they brought in, Ashton Funk they've obviously already got in the fold. To me, I really like what they're doing up front. How do you see the rest of this class kind of coming together from your perspective?
Oh, same here. I like those front guys. You don't really have that traditional left tackle, that's going to be
Hmm.
the 6'7". And if Michigan somehow doesn't get Bennett Warren, I think A&M's in the next best shape there. But unless Michigan just fills up before he's ready to commit, I think he's probably there. But he would sort of fit that mold. But I mean, Blake Ivy has the longest wingspan of any tackle in Texas. Weston Davis, athletic kid, plays basketball, has great feet, can play the left spot. I think Ashton Funk's probably a right tackle. Then you got a kid, that just picked up the offer. We saw him,
Hmm.
we didn't get to see him work out, but we saw him at camp in Samir Camacho, another kid with a long wingspan that, he's 6'3.5", but has that long wingspan and can play tackle. So I really like that they're after a lot of these athletic guys. And then, even a guard, a guy like Makai Sina who plays tackle, Daniel Cruz thereafter, who plays tackle. Bunch of guys like that I think are going to be I think has a chance to really to refill an offensive line position that needs depth, it needs new players. I mean, it hasn't been, I do like the true freshman, but other than that, it hasn't been the best position I think that they've been signing lately. But I think this class has a chance to turn it around a bit.
No doubt. And Nate Kibble's another name to
Mhm.
to mention as a guy that came in on an official visit as well. I think they've given themselves options. They've given themselves numbers, and then that's one of the big things. I think they could sign any of six they've given themselves roughly six options and to try to get maybe three in the
Yeah, you
class.
got
And
Cohen Eccles too.
Cohen
Comes from
Eccles too is another
another
name.
tackle, high school tackle that can play center. So
Kobe Branham's a guy that'll be coming in this weekend of June 16th, and so I think they've really done a nice job of giving themselves options. we're going to look a little more. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to look a little more at that. You mentioned the camps. Where
Yeah.
1 week of camps is in the books. There's a second one coming up. We're going to talk some camp standouts. There were a few of them, and so stick with us. We'll be right back after a quick break. Welcome back into the GigEm247 Sports Podcast. I am Andrew Hattersley, joined by Brian Peroni. We got official visit season and camp season kind of running back to back. I don't envy these coaches. You can just see, by the time you get to the end of June, you've got to go basically from 3 days out in the heat running camps right into official visit weekends. It's a draining process this month of June, but a lot of good showings last week during the first 3 days. Friday was particularly loaded with a lot of guys coming in. Yeah. Who was maybe the guy that you feel like caught your eye the most over the course of the week?
Oh man, there were a lot of really good defensive backs.
Yeah.
They had national guys coming in-state guys. I mean, really, a bunch of them did, but I was really impressed with a freshman, or I guess he just finished his freshman in the state of Texas. Isaiah Williams. I bet to say Maurice.
Yep, that was my guy.
Isaiah Williams from Fort Bend Marshall. I mean, he's what, 6'1", maybe in 6'2", 180 pounds. Cornerback, has a 2026 prospect. He's out there going against, any receiver who would go after him. He could end up being a safety, a really good safety in coverage, but he showed those corner abilities. So yeah, I had seen him in camp a little bit before, but never, not really that closely, and not against the competition level that, seeing him out there with other DBs. I mean, he was out there with Devin Sanchez, a 5-star 2025 cornerback from North Shore, who also had a great day. He was out there with some 4 stars, and definitely more than held his own.
Yeah, that was going to be my guy that was kind of the top performer. And we were kind of joking last week Friday, because that was, as a Dallas guy, that was my first real opportunity to get to see Isaiah Williams, and I kept saying, man, this kid's really good. This kid's won just about all of his reps, and I know you were laughing saying, I've had the chance to see him. I know this kid's really good. He was probably the best day out there. I was really impressed with what Devin Sanchez did as well. Good length, good size. I've had the chance to see him now in a game setting and in a camp setting, and he really does a good job kind of mirroring receivers, flipping his hips, showing good anticipation. The other guy that I know really had the coaches excited, and we'll talk a little more about him, is Miles Davis, who came, and I know A&M was kind of intrigued to see what he would bring. They're being really high on him and wanted to see what he would look like in that setting. And I thought he had a really good day and had one of the plays that got TJ Rushing and DJ Durkin really excited. Mm-hmm. And BGA was, we saw some DBs kind of give up on some plays maybe if they got beat, and he didn't do that and came back to punch a ball out. I believe it was against Mike Brown, who also had a really good day and picked up an offer, but came back to punch a ball out and broke up the pass. And you saw TJ Rushing sprint from one end of the field to come, give him kudos. DJ Durkin did the same, and BGA. Just the effort and the ability to do that, I thought was really impressive.
No, for sure. Yeah, you mentioned Mike Brown. I mean, he's a 26 wide receiver. He's the son of former A&M All-American linebacker Reggie Brown. He had a really good day at receiver. Another receiver early in the week, Kelshawn Johnson from Hitchcock. After he picked up A&M, then Texas offered him a couple days later. We saw a couple good linemen. We didn't get a chance to see their one-on-ones because they were over Kyle Field that day, but a couple good linemen that first day. And Jonte Newman from Cypress Bridgeland, really athletic
big
kid.
Size, yeah.
6'6", long arms, long. I mean, his dad's probably 6'9", 6'10". So who knows, he could get even taller. And then Connor Carty from Prosper, 2 kids that both picked up offers that day, both in the 25 class, and really impressive too.
No doubt. And I know Mike Brown, the son, as you mentioned, the son of former A&M linebacker Reggie Brown. One thing I was particularly impressed with him as well. he took rep after rep after rep. It
Yeah.
felt like you kind of turned away, and 2 reps later he'd be going again, and he was going up against Devin
Against 5 stars,
Sanchez
Devin Sanchez, the kid from
and
out of state.
Isaiah Williams. Yeah, he would be going up against Jalewis Solomon,
Yeah.
Isaiah Williams, and Devin Sanchez over and over and over. And you can see a kid that didn't shy away from competition, could go up and high point the ball, make a lot of competitive catches. I really liked what he kind of brought to the table. And then kind of the last offer of the week was Owen Hollenbeck, and that one was interesting. He kind of showed up a little bit later in the day on Friday and worked out with the coaching staffs. From everything I've been told, the workout went great, and he ended up picking up an offer as he was on his way out the door. And I think the thing with him that a lot of people say is when you see him in person, he's a lot bigger than he may look,
Yeah.
standing 40 feet away. That's one of the big things I always hear about him is his size really impresses you when you actually see him up close. But really good interior lineman. I think he's probably a guy that fits at center guard, probably at the next level. But where you mentioned a lot of really, really impressive showings at the running back position. James Simon, the first day was probably the
Mhm.
top performer. Their Thursday was a little bit quieter. They did extend an offer to Kobe Sellers, a Houston area cornerback who
Yeah, I
played
think that same day, Samir Camacho got his offer too.
same day that he got his offer. And he kind of showed up in the afternoon, and unfortunately, weather messed with the afternoon plans. They had to head inside and do work inside. But Wednesday and Friday were particularly strong.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, there's one more week of it. We don't, the names that we have going into the week may not be as big as last week, but, what we saw is, some of those guys just sort of showed up out of the blue. So, it'll be another reloaded week. I mean, that's one thing that's, way different from this staff versus the previous staff
Mhm.
is the previous staff used it, as guys just completely under the radar. Hey, like a, low 3-star guy come and try and earn an offer, which it did happen sometimes, but this staff wants to see guys there actually after compete. I mean, you don't see 5-stars like David Sanchez just show up and go through camp for no reason. I mean, it's impressive they're able to get guys like that to work out.
No joke. We were joking about it last week. There were folks who said, I'm just gonna come watch. And we were like, you're gonna get there and you're gonna find out you're working out.
Yeah, we
And
said that. Yeah, we said that with one kid, and he did end up working out after he
he
said
did
no.
end up working out. So, Friday, I think the other particularly notable part, as we talked about, just in terms of the names that kept coming through, was the defensive line. And 3 headliners from that group were Kevin Otis, Landon Rink, and Xavier Okponu, who came through to work out. And, I kind of talked about it a little bit with Kevin Otis, and he's really high on A&M. He's one of the top linemen in the
Mhm.
2025 class. And he said, when it comes down to making a decision down the road, as much as it's me working out for them and getting an opportunity to show them what I can do, it's also a chance for them to see what Elijah Robinson's like as a coach. And he said it was particularly helpful as he goes to different schools. He doesn't have to at least focus as much on the message and what they're saying. He's had a chance to work with them in a camp setting. And so there's guys like him that find it particularly helpful. And one of the name that we'd be remiss if we didn't mention when we're talking about camp standouts is Hardly Gilmore, who came from Pahokee, Florida on Wednesday, and was one of the top performers from that day, going against Hilton Stubbs,
Yeah.
and some really good defensive backs. What'd you make of Hardly Gilmore? And what stood out about him?
Oh, another kid that, I mean, he just did a good job of getting open. I mean,
Yeah.
he was going against, we said Hilton Stubbs, who's a national top 100 safety, playing on him. Gilmore was able to get past him. He's not going to be a kid that's going to be a burner that's going to test at 4.4 or anything like that. But he did just have that knack of getting open and using his body to make himself get open. If the quarterback put it near him, he was going to catch it. So, yeah, him and Hilton Stubbs both had really good days. That's another thing, man. I mean, Hilton Stubbs, national top 100 kid from Florida. I mean, he's working out of camp. Not only that, he didn't have an offer. He came to earn an offer. And I
Yep, he
mean,
came to an
you see
offer.
that. I mean, you don't see that at a lot of schools. This is like how LSU camps used to be back, 15 or 20 years ago, and I'd go cover that as you'd see the big names, but nobody else was really doing that, getting those. So yeah, it's really nice to see, and I think encouraging for A&M fans to see that there are these kids that are coming there, putting that pride aside just to work out and come to camp.
No doubt. And they've done a good job of kind of making it come work out, stay an extra day, and we can kind of turn
Oh
this
yeah,
into an official. It's not just come and work out and go home. come work out, get in front of us. We'll be able
Yeah.
to talk about it and go from there. So, both of us will be back down in College Station on Wednesday through Friday. So be sure to stay tuned to the GigEm247 Sports site, and we will have notes and everything in terms of who's there, who's working out, standouts. So be sure to stay locked in on the site. And if you are not a subscriber, be sure to take advantage of our flash sale going on right now, 60% off a annual subscription. So good chance to jump on board and get you taken
Yeah,
care of for
a
this
lot of news, a lot of
entire
news coming in.
lot of news coming in, a lot of reactions from official visit weekend, guys lining up official visits. So we've got you covered. There's a lot happening over on the site. So good time to jump in and get official visit season and get yourself taken care of for the fall. So until then, we're going to jump off, and we'll be back next week to break down more on the recruiting front and the team side. Until then, have a good week, everybody, and we'll see you guys soon.